Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. Today I wanted to go through and break down the top 5 best assault rifles you could be using right now in Battlefield 6. I've actually gone through, I've leveled every single assault rifle to where you have a good chunk of the attachments, really tested them out, see how they feel, how they perform across a variety of engagements in different modes. And I think I've narrowed it down to a solid top 5. Now that's not to say that what's not on this list is not good by any means. Because of how the general weapon balance works in Battlefield, all of the rifles are applicable, especially for certain playstyles. Some more aggressive than others, some better at holding choke points than others, some offer way better damage, and some offer way better control. But these 5, I think, are a nice balance of all sorts of different playstyles, and there's a handful of different builds you could rock for them as well. But I wanted to start first here with the KORD, because funny enough, this is the rifle that as I was leveling it, when I first started using it, first few matches, I was like, yeah, there's no way this gun is going to end up making it into the top 5. I thought this was absolutely out of the mix because while it is super low recoil, as you can see here, it didn't feel strong, especially when you don't have many attachments on it. It didn't really feel like it was going to be a top tier rifle. Then I leveled it, and this thing might be one of my favorite guns in the entire game right now. So focusing on the general attachments here first, and then towards the end of the video, we'll break down the general assault category in which you might want to rock on your entire class here, since obviously the assault rifles do get the signature weapon benefits here. The KORD max out at 100 points. You got some really great options here. First up, for the optic, this really is a matter of preference. I really like the 2x scope. The CCO 2x worked really well and felt really good for me, but if there's a different scope with a different zoom that you like more for your playstyle, whether you're playing long range and you need more zoom, or maybe close range and you want less zoom, feel free to change that as you need. I've recently been rocking the blue laser on a lot of my guns. There's actually 2 different variants. One, the 120 milliwatt blue laser, the other, the 50 milliwatt blue laser. Each of these are good, and you get the first blue laser here a little bit earlier on, which is a little bit weird because it's more expensive than the basic blue laser. But if you wanted to get this up to rank 37, you could go through and use that. It'll be a little bit cheaper, but just the most expensive 120 milliwatt here works really good because it's going to help out with your hip fire accuracy. So if you're in the close range, you're covered there, but also your ADS accuracy while moving as well. So if you do some strafing, this will actually help out there and won't penalize you as much. I love the converter on weapons like this that just make the recoil pattern feel a lot more consistent. The spread won't be as noticeable because it is attacking some of that horizontal movement there. And then the heavy barrel is super clutch as well. Improves your firing accuracy over extended periods. So if you are sort of spraying with this thing instead of tap firing, it's going to maintain some really decent accuracy here. So I think that's a really nice combination there. Heavy barrel and converter feeling really good. And then you stack on an underbarrel, in this case the 6H64. The recoil pattern is pretty straightforward as well, stacking all these control based attachments on here, which I think is fantastic. I had some leftover points, so I just went with the 30 round fast mag. Why not? I felt like that was sufficient. If you want to save some points maybe elsewhere, if you like the iron sights, or if you're going for a lesser laser or something and you want to throw on a 40 rounder instead, it'll be a little bit more expensive, but you have a slightly larger safety net because the rate of fire here is a little bit faster than I was just rocking just the standard default ammo on there. But there's a lot of different ways you could build this out if you wanted to go more aggressive and change over to, you know, a light barrel instead, or like I said, rock an iron sight. Really customize the way that this gun feels for your gameplay and your gameplay specifically. And speaking of making your gameplay experience really feel like your gameplay experience, let's talk about today's sponsor, Rules of Engagement, The Gray State. Rules of Engagement, The Gray State is a tactical RPG shooter set in the horror-verse. You take up the role of a Strider, an elite operative hired to venture into the Gray State, a dimension full of monstrosities and alien artifacts. You've got one simple goal here: retrieve the Vertex. Actually, no, wait, I guess you've got 2 goals: retrieve the Vertex and survive. The Gray State is based on fair gameplay and player choice. Everyone starts equally, there's no gear fear, everyone's playing on the same level, but you can choose to get risky. You can leave early, play it safe, or continue the hunt for the Vertex in hopes of making it out with your ultimate goal achieved. The Gray State features deep build crafting with massive talent trees that really let you control what your gameplay experience is like. Sledge, Pyro, and Phantom make up your class selections that offer the perfect mix of balance and tactics to help out your team. And even if your team wants to run multiple of the same character, your experiences could be vastly different. This game is a genre bender, all right? The next evolution of tactical shooters filled with high stakes action, intense monster and bounty hunting, and the classic RPG style classes and skills, pushing you to not only use your classes to your advantage, but to use your brain a little bit as well. If you're interested in checking out the Gray State, be sure to click on the link down below. And if you want to get more involved, feel free to check out their Discord and even wish list on Steam. And once again, big thank you to Rules of Engagement, the Gray State, for sponsoring today's video. Next up here, we've got the L85A3, and this is one of my favorite weapons in the entire game. After going through and leveling this thing up, it is a ton of fun to use. It's also, conveniently enough, one of the easiest guns to use in the entire game, and so lethal over range. This is definitely one of the rifles, while we will have some that we'll talk about that are definitely more so meant for run and gun style, of play, going after the objectives, playing in the close quarters, maybe some of the mid-range. This is a gun I think thrives when you can get in and around an objective, hold down a choke point, hold down a lane, and sort of just take players out at a distance. Like if there are players behind barricades, on head glitches, in windows, whatever the case is, this thing's going to be a laser, but also pack a punch at the same time as well. So good for those mid to long range engagements sitting in and around objectives here. So initially, yet again with the optic, simply a matter of preference. I really like the 3x scope, especially because I was focused more on some mid to long range fights. Nice level of zoom, clean reticle on here as well. But once more, if there's one that you prefer more, feel free to go ahead and switch over to that. Once more, I do have the converter on here. You'll notice I kind of spam this on a lot of my setups right now, just because it limiting the spread a little bit more, it limiting some of that horizontal bounce makes the guns a lot more straightforward. And especially when you stack the converter with an underbarrel like the 6H64, if you have the points left over because you're adjusting as needed, a classic vertical doing a lot as well can be really beneficial for your overall recoil pattern there. The heavy extended here, quite frankly, is the best of both worlds. This is going to give you better velocity, so your hit reg is going to feel so much more consistent as you do fight at longer distances. You don't have to worry about as much bullet drop or bullet lead being over 1,000 velocity as we can see down there. So that is a huge benefit. Plus, it's still giving you that better accuracy over extended periods of firing. So if you are spraying instead of tap firing, it's going to help out even more. And of course, you can mix and match both. In some cases, you're going to need a tap fire. In others, you can sort of hold it down. And it's going to be a very easy gun because of this little trio of attachments here. I did have points left over, so I did go for the 36 round extended mag. Might as well, right? A little bit more of a safety net there. Then synthetic ammo here, increasing that headshot multiplier to a 1.75 times means that if you're landing a couple of headshots in a fight, you are going to rip through enemies. And like I said, this gun being so good and so laser accurate, it's very easy to stay on target and hit those consistent headshots if players are behind cover or even out in the open and you know that bullet drop and that bullet lead, which you don't have to worry about too much here. Everything here is just complimentary of this gun being a beast and it being low recoil and very easy to use. So definitely one I'd recommend leveling up ASAP because it feels phenomenal. And by the way, as we are going through all the weapons, all the setups here, if you guys enjoy the video, you find the information helpful, do me a favor, drop a like on the video itself. It does really help grow the channel, and share the video around to new viewers. And if you happen to be one of those new viewers, or maybe you just have not subscribed yet, we should change that. I got you covered with all things you need to know for Battlefield, whether it is gun guides like this, the best weapons and setups you want to be looking out for, tips and tricks to improving game, and of course, all the latest news, updates, leaks, rumors, quite literally all things going on for Battlefield 6 you'll find out about here. So feel free to hit that subscribe button and turn on those post notifications and help us get one step closer to hitting 1 million subs. Next up here, we've got the NVO-228E. This is seemingly a fan favorite rifle because this is one that people talk about like crazy, especially because it is so easy to use. This, much like the L85, is a very low recoil rifle, really good for playing some long range, especially if you're sitting there tap firing. But despite the fact that it is relatively easy to use and kind of a laser beam, it has really good damage at the same time as well. So it's kind of the best of both worlds here. You can play this a little bit more close range, a little bit more aggressive if you are in and around objectives inside of buildings in those close quarters areas. It'll hold its own there, especially if you're able to land like some of those upper body shots or headshots with this build. But if you need to play at a distance, it's easy enough, it's low recoil enough that you can thrive there as well. Again, same conversation as always with the optic. In this case, I went for the CCO 2 times yet again. That was feeling accurate for me. Didn't really feel a need to change that, but as always, adjust that towards your preference there. Once more, we've got the converter on here. I did mess around at the initial break, the double port break. I like the feel of this as well for what it's worth, but just stacking the converter with the other recoil based attachments works so well for especially my style of play here on keyboard and mouse, where there's a little bit more recoil than on controller. If you didn't know, the inputs do differ with recoil patterns, but as an early weapon build here, especially if you're still leveling and trying to get all the way to max, which does take some time, the converter is going to be such a huge helper there. Extended barrel in this case, we don't have any heavy or anything like that, but just getting that velocity velocity up once more, increases that overall effectiveness in the mid-range just with how the weapon's going to feel from a consistency basis, which in my opinion is so important here. I again go for an underbarrel, in this case the classic vertical. Again, keep in mind it does say it hurts accuracy while aiming down sights, but as you are stacking some of these recoil based attachments, it ultimately is going to come down to how much you're spraying. If you're spraying more and more, or if you're moving and strafing, your spread, your bloom there is going to feel a little bit more noticeable. But if you're tap firing, you're playing the gun as intended there to maintain accuracy, this is going to make it feel like an absolute laser as well. Had some points left over, so I did go for the 30 round fast, just 5 extra points there as opposed to the basic 30. You can get a slightly faster reload off, why not, right? And then hollow point on here, there is no synthetic in this case, but still upping that headshot multiplier to 1.5 times to pair with that already very strong base 33 damage on there. Felt really good. So this thing is a ton of fun to use, and like I said, really something I think a lot of players lean towards because of its ease of use, but also it's very rewarding gameplay at the same time. Next up here, we've got the M433. This is one you've probably been using a lot just because it's the very first rifle you do end up unlocking, and for good reason. It is it's a really solid rifle. It's also a very versatile rifle as well. It can excel up close in some of the close quarters engagements. It can also excel over range because it is relatively easy to use. It's definitely one of the more well-rounded rifles that could fit a variety of play styles. If you're more aggressive, if you're more relaxed, this is one that's going to be largely consistent across the board here, and there are so many different ways you could build this out. I'm only level 25 on mine, so there's even more attachments I would like to, you know, switch over to in the future, knowing that they'll enhance certain elements of my gameplay even more. But again, for the optic, in this case, I found myself playing a little bit more aggressive with the M433, so I like the OSA 7 one-time scope. It's a very little clean reticle there, not too much zoom, but it also is still clean enough that I can see over range, and if someone's on a head glitch or something or behind some cover, I can still maintain accuracy there pretty well. Again, we've got the converter on here, very straightforward, helping out that recoil. Extended barrel on here once more to up that velocity. 837, it'll feel a lot more consistent in some of those you know, mid to long range fights. Once more though, if you are a little bit more aggressive, you want to play more to those close quarters, even a short barrel here, improving the hip fire accuracy, the better ADS. It'll hurt your velocity, but it'll play it more for those close range engagements where that won't be as much of a factor for what it's worth. Even if a light barrel here as well, for what it's worth, could be pretty good too once you go through and you level things up. Vertical underbarrel here in this case, 6H64, feeling pretty solid. Yet again, not doing too much strafing with a build like this. You know, obviously trying to maintain the accuracy over range, and this will help out some with that. 30 fast for now, although as you do level it up more, I think the 36 rounder would be a nice little safety net there at level 31, just getting a few extra bullets. Faster rate of fire in general by comparison, so never a bad idea to have that safety net where applicable. Hollow point on here, pretty solid option as well to increase that headshot multiplier a little bit. No synthetic in this case, unfortunately. Then just because for the time being, I've got some leftover points as I am still leveling it up. Mag flare on here so you can reload while ADSing, so if you're holding down a choke point, you're ideally on an objective trying to maintain control of that, you can stay focused on a choke point, on a doorway or a corner, whatever the case is, and still get those reloads off and stay engaged in the action there. I think that's a nice you know, added benefit, especially as someone who is a heavy objective player. That can really help play into that play style and keep you engaged at all times there. So like I said, there's a couple of different ways you could build this out. You could really go in on the versatility, which I think I've done a good job of here, but also you could play into the aggressiveness of this weapon as well and make it a little bit more agile if you were looking for that style of play. And then lastly here for the weapons, I've got the TR7, and this thing is by far the most aggressive rifle choice from all the, you know, experience I've had with these. You'll notice it is a little bit more heavy on the recoil there, something you might want to take note of as you're going through and adjusting certain attachments, but also you can tap fire this thing, still maintain decent accuracy, but this to me really feels like it is meant to be in and around those choke points, in and around those objectives, to really play up close and personal. This thing is going to shred in those scenarios. Just takes a little bit of getting used to as far as the control, the accuracy, maybe some of the weapon bounce and spread there. But if you can really get comfortable with this thing, boy, it absolutely shreds in that close range and in around the early mid-range as well. So first up, because I'm so focused on basically just the close range here, I like some of these more close range based optics. The 1x zooms, the 1.5 times, in and around that mark is probably going to be the most ideal for that style of play. Obviously, as you saw, even just in the firing range there, with the recoil, the kick that this has visually, you're probably not going to be fighting and taking on players too much at, you know, 50, 60, 70, 80 meters beyond, especially ones that might be in and around cover. This is definitely geared towards maybe some of the close quarters playlists where you're playing domination, king of the hill, or if you're always on on those objectives in some of the larger map modes as well. Because this is a bit more of an aggressive weapon, I do like the 50 milliwatt blue laser on here for the better hipfire accuracy, the better ADS accuracy while moving as well. I do a fair bit of strafing with a gun like this as I am playing close quarters, so that's a huge benefit there. Definitely want the converter on here. You could also probably get by with using the brakes here, single port, double port, even leveling it up a little bit more to 31 and getting that compensated brake. All the recoil here, all the control rather that you can get is going to be very useful across the board. So definitely something you want to look into. I would recommend as you are leveling it, test these out, see which ones work the best for you. Like I said, I'm kind of a converter main right now just because of how it is attacking horizontal control and horizontal bounce a good bit there. So I do like that quite a bit. Extended barrel on here just to help out once more with that velocity. Even when I am fighting close range, the better velocity stats do really make my weapons feel a lot more consistent across the board, especially when you have weird situations where like the net code could be a little bit iffy. Better velocity in general, better hit reg because of that better velocity stat is really going to be a noticeable thing. If you are adjusting things, you know, here and there and you have the points, I do think the light barrel, the fluted barrel here, improving the ADS and the transition there, I think could be solid, plus ADS accuracy while moving, playing into the strengths of this gun a little bit more as well, could be really good. So where you might have points, that could be something you could absolutely look into there. Now, if you didn't want to use hollow points necessarily because you're comfortable with the damage as is, I do think for what it's worth, getting that added headshot multiplier on a 33 base damage weapon is solid, but you could swap that out and then change over to a light barrel, have a slightly more expensive barrel but cheaper ammo, and then use those extra points for something like a light, or if you want ergonomics here for something, or if you wanted to upgrade your underbarrel a little bit more, go up to vertical or something like that, that could absolutely be viable as well with like a 6H64 or even a classic one on here as well, and really go more into that control and slow the weapon down a little bit. There's obviously a lot of different ways to build out every single weapon here, factoring in your play style and what's going to work well for you, whether you're playing on a higher FOV, more zoomed out, maybe the visual recoil feels different, console recoil or controller recoil rather, versus keyboard and mouse. There's a lot of factors that go in. 20 round extended mag works fine here. There isn't a ton of magazine capacity, and quite frankly, you just can't afford to use some of these points on some of these larger extended mags when you do need to focus in on the control a decent bit here. But from a lot of playtesting with this thing, leveling this thing up, I love how aggressive this one is in specific. It is vastly noticeable how much more this thing thrives in the close range and how it thrives with that very much so on the objectives, playing close to the enemy's play style versus some of these other ones. Like you have the NVO, you have the core, the L85 focused more on like the long range and being a little bit more accuracy and precision based, whereas this one is a lot more aggressive and kind of reckless in a sense. And then as mentioned, I did want to talk a little bit about the assault class in general, since obviously all the assault rifles here do get the various bonuses for being used with the assault class. So I actually really do like the frontliner training path as opposed to the breacher basic one. This just plays more into my play style. Quicker recovery, passive health regen triggers 50% faster and provides a 50% improvement on healing. I think that's huge. Go ahead and move the face cam so you can actually see the bonuses there. Reduced impact from falling or jumping from heights. Let's just say I'm a little prone to fall damage, okay? It's a flaw. This helps out with that quite a bit. Then the adrenaline rush on there as well. Squad mates that deploy on you gain the effects of adrenaline injector for 2 seconds. I just really think this plays into the way that I'm attacking a lot of these game modes here. I've been using the Magnum as a secondary, just kind of leveling this thing up slowly but surely. This thing is a beast in the close range, so if you do run out of ammo, switching over to this real quick is just absolutely fantastic. I'm currently working on some assault challenges here using the fire shotgun. Boy, this thing is an experience. People do not like it when they get fire shotgunned in this game as well, but I do think that's honestly a pretty solid alternative for some of the close range engagements there. But assault ladder is also very useful for kind of setting that up and getting some nice angles and some nice peaks that you couldn't otherwise get in some cases. And of course, if you want to go more so the explosive launcher route, you could use some things like this, the thermobaric launcher as well. Like, they're all viable here. Really comes down to how are you attacking a position. Do you like the angles that you can get with an assault ladder? Do you just like going in guns a-blazing and firing off explosives? They all have their place here, but I do think above all that redeploy beacon is the most important gadget you could use here. Given this ability to spawn your squad mates wherever you place this down, you could really be efficient with your map control with this. So that's, I think, the most important gadget you could rock there. I like the frags. I've just been rocking that. And then for the melee, this is really a preference thing. Some people love rocking the sledgehammer because it's hilarious. You can knock things down. I like the movement of the combat knife, just running around with that as I'm spawning and then getting back to that choke point there. But that being said, those are the top 5 best assault rifles from my experience so far, going through and leveling all these up and getting a lot of progress done on these. But that said, just because something didn't make this list, like the AK-4D or the SOR, doesn't mean these aren't really good options too. Like the SOR hits like a truck. The AK-4D, you can tap fire and it's gonna feel really, really good. Like there is a place for all of these. And quite frankly, like the G36C, also phenomenal as well. We just covered this in the top 5 weapons video from the other day. So if you haven't caught that yet, feel free to go and check that out there as well. But you have so much variety, so much diversity in this category. It's a ton of fun. You can really go all out on all of these. And there's really not a wrong answer, quite frankly. But that being said, that's gonna wrap things up for this video. If you guys enjoyed, be sure to drop a like. And of course, if you're new to the channel, you want to ensure you're always up to date with everything going on in Battlefield, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those post notifications. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.